Hi guys, Mamie Carson here with another project for Sweet Stamp Shop. In this project we are collaborating with Tombow, and I'm going to be featuring their adhesives and dual brush markers in the primary palette. Everyone already knows these markers are perfect for brush lettering, but they're also a great medium for watercoloring. I'm also going to be using some real food sprinkles to create a delicious shaker element. The stamp set I'm using is the Life is Sweet set that has the beautiful sentiment that's going to be the focal point of our card. We are starting our project using some VersaMark ink, which is a clear sticky ink that can be used for heat embossing. And I'm prepping my watercolor card with an embossing buddy that helps remove static and moisture from the surface of your project so the embossing powder only sticks to the stamped area. And I'm going to stamp the ice cream cone in a random pattern on my background, making sure the stamp is going off the edge of the paper for a more organic feel. And I didn't clean my stamp very well, so it's stamping in like a very gray color, but it wasn't an issue because I'm going to be covering it in some white embossing powder. So after sprinkling on some white embossing powder, I'm going to tap off that excess and use my heat tool to heat the powder. And that's going to turn the stamping into a dimensional image that is perfect for watercoloring because it creates a barrier so the watercolor won't bleed out on you. So I'm using my heat tool here, and I let that heat up a little bit before I applied it towards the paper because this way it won't blow off all of the embossing powder that you just laid on there. So get your heat tool nice and hot before you take it to your paper, and you're going to have a lot better results that way. I used the colors in my sprinkles to guide my color choices for the rest of the card. And I also created a swatch of all the colors as a reference because the colors always look different on different kinds of paper. I wanted to get a gradient effect with my coloring so that I wouldn't have to go back in and create any shadows or highlights. So I accomplished this by brushing on a bit of the color with the marker in the area I wanted my shadows or the darker area. And then I used my water brush to pull that color out. And all I can say is, wow. These colors are super pigmented. They blend like a dream and dry beautifully. I was so impressed with these markers, I went out and bought the other sets. I mean, I had to have them all after that. I mean, this is, and I'm not usually like that. You guys who know me know that I budget my spending, so that is saying a lot. I mean, just look at the effect. So, as always, I list all the products and the supplies I use below the videos in the description box with links that will take you right to the place where you can purchase them. So don't forget to check that out so that you can pick up some of these markers for yourself because they are awesome. So I'm going to skip ahead here because I am doing the same thing over and over again. I only use these few primary colors and then I started over again. So I'm only going to show you the first set of cones that I colored in before we move on. And so I'm just showing off the marker here. They contain a nib tip and a brush tip, and the markers themselves are very durable. And they also come with a blender pen as well in each of the packages. So this is really great. So you can either use your water brush or you can use these blender pens as well. But I really needed a washed out color. I really wanted a washed out color. Even though it didn't turn out that washed out, I mean, even with all that water, the colors are still very vivid. But to finish my background, I'm diluting some of the black to a really light gray with lots and lots of water. And I'm also adding more water to the cardstock, and that helps the color spread out and dilute it even more. So I'm just going to finish that up here, just taking little bits at a time and really spreading that color out. And this is going to help those cones pop off the page and give them a little bit more dimension. So after I finish with that, I'm going to let the background panel dry and move on to creating our focal point, the shaker element. So we're going to start out with a sheet of acetate that's embossable, and I use the Judikins. I don't even know what other kinds there are because I always use the Judikins and it works out really well. I love this stuff, and I use it for all of my shaker cards, and it is embossable, so that's fantastic. And you just want to make sure that you use your embossing buddy to swipe over the acetate because it's full of static and it'll cling to your powder. So don't skip this step. Just ask me how I know. And we're doing the same thing that we did before, but this time we're stamping the sentiment with the VersaMark. And you want to make sure that you don't let that slip around. You just want to go down and up without slipping around, because that'll kind of blur your sentiment if you do that. And I'm going to put the heat embossing and then heat it up, and it doesn't take long to melt on the acetate, so be aware not to overheat on that. And then I'm just showing you here with a blue background what the sentiment looks like on the acetate, and it looks just beautiful, and there's no sprinkles of embossing powder all over the place. So that's because of the embossing powder. Next, we're going to take 2 circle dies and nest them together to die cut a frame for our shaker card. And I'm also going to use the larger circle die to cut the sentiment from the acetate. And so I'm just going to show you guys here how I'm nesting these circles on this like watermelon colored cardstock. And I'm going to send that through my die cutting machine. And I'm going to pull out my die cutting machine. I don't usually do this, but I just thought, you know, there's a lot of people probably that are new to stamping and they might not know much about die cutting. And a lot of times I just like disappear with my cardstock and my dies, and I come back and everything's cut out. So I wanted to make sure that I showed you guys what is happening on the side when these die cuts are coming back and how that's accomplished. And so I'm going to try to do that more often by keeping the die cutting in there. Even though it lengthens the video a bit, I think a lot of beginners really want to see that. And so now I'm also taking the acetate, like I said, with that bigger circle die, and so that enables me to cut out that sentiment. And that looks so pretty. So now we can move on, and I'm just showing you all of my pieces that I have so far. And we're going to move on here with this blue cardstock, and this is going to be the back of our shaker element. And so I'm going to do what's called like a tone on tone technique, and you're going to use that VersaMark again to stamp the ice cream cones to give an illusion of a darker shade of blue. And so last time whenever I was stamping, I didn't clean my stamp very well, and like I showed you, it was coming out gray, but it was okay because I was going over it with the white embossing powder. This time it's not okay. So I had made sure that my stamp was super clean before I did the tone on tone, so that it wouldn't be black, it would be blue. And so it, like, as you can see here, it just looks like a darker shade of blue, and that's an easy way to get 2 different colors without using any other ink really. And so the VersaMark is very versatile for these types of things. I'm also going to be cutting out this piece with that larger die as well, the larger circle die. And I will not be showing that. I'm just going to do that off camera because you already saw kind of how that worked. So I have all my pieces together here, and to bring our shaker card together, I'm going to apply a very thin line of the Tombow's Mono Multi Glue, and I love this glue. I use it all the time, and I'm going to put that on the back of the frame, and then apply the acetate next, and to create the dimension we need to make the sprinkle shake, I'm going to apply some foam tape around that as well. So we're just going to press that acetate into place, and that Tombow Mono Multi lets you have a little bit of wiggle room, so which is fantastic. Instead of a tape won't allow you to move it around, but this glue will allow you to move it around a bit. And so like I said, I'm going to take that foam tape, and I'm just going to use 1 layer of foam tape because the sprinkles are really, really tiny, and so they'll be able to move freely without having, a lot of people do a double layer, but I don't need a double layer. So I'm just going to cut out a thin piece of this foam tape, and the best way to do any kind of shape that's not perfectly square, like this round one for example, is best to take off the tape backing from the top and the bottom. This helps you be able to manipulate that foam tape a lot easier. So I'm just going around here and finishing that off. And now I'm going to add in some of the sprinkles here. And I went a little overboard with the sprinkles. I don't know. I must have been hungry or something. But finally, we're going to apply the back, and we have our awesome shaker element. You want to press that into place really, really well so none of those little sprinkles will try to crawl out. But it's looking so yummy. Now, to bring the card together, I'm going to be doing some cutting down of some stuff here. So I've got this watercolor cardstock that when I heated it up with the heat tool, it got a little bit warped. So I'm just straightening that out. And then I also have some of that watermelon cardstock that I'm going to cut down as well. So I'm just kind of looking at it, making sure that it's going to give me the look that I'm wanting. And so I'm going to take a rectangle die and cut down that watercolored panel just a bit. And I'm just showing you that it's a stitched rectangle. Run that through. And then I'm also going to be cutting down my watermelon colored cardstock to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 to create a mat for the card. And I just got some new blades on my trimmer, and so I'm just like loving it. Don't you guys love it when you get new blades for your trimmer? Okay, so I'm using the super awesome adhesive by Tombow, and it bends when you push it down, and it gives this perfect adhesion to the paper. And so I like made a lot more lines on there than I needed just because I was so excited about the way it worked. I just loved it. And I'm pressing that into place. And now to tie the whole project together, I'm going to finish it off with some blue satin ribbon to kind of go along with the blue in the card and as well as that background paper. So I tried to find a color that matched pretty well. And it's some satin ribbon. And I'm also going to add, I'm not very good at making ribbon, so I kind of cut that out. I just tied some of it to begin with, and I cut out the rest because it took me like a full 2 minutes to sit there and fiddle with that bow. I just, can't stand it. But anyway, so I'm going to add a dot of that Tombow Mono Multi onto the top of the ribbon there and press it into place. I'm sure a lot of people can just tie ribbon right into place, but I cannot do that. It has to be perfect in my mind before I can move on. So even though it might not be perfect to anybody else, it's as good as it gets for me. So and now I'm going to add some glue on the back of that shaker element and put that into place also. And that gives me, like I said, a little bit of wiggle room so I can make sure that I have it centered nicely. And I'm going to add some more foam tape to the watercolored cardstock to give it some added dimension. And you want to make sure that you put plenty of tape back here because watercolor cardstock doesn't like to stick very good because it's so bumpy that the adhesive kind of hits and misses sometimes. So more adhesive is better. And so that pretty much wraps up my project for Sweet Stamp Shop in collaboration with Tombow. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please, please, please subscribe to my channel as this helps us reach more people and keep bringing you more fun projects. And be sure to like Sweet Stamp Shop as well and see them on Instagram, and be sure to make life sweet. See you guys next time.